to order. It is October 27th. We're calling the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. All 5 commissioners are present online. The meeting is being held online. Let's see. The first thing on the agenda is to approve the agenda. So do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Any discussion?
Discussion, please.
Commissioner Blackwelder.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to remove item number 7. I don't believe we'll have time for that this evening.
Okay, well, that was your agenda item. So is there any discussion on the motion to delete number 7 from the agenda?
Is this, I just have a question. Is this to postpone it till next time, or is it to just completely eliminate it?
I would say it's to postpone it. I think we're going to have our hands full trying to figure out what public statement we're going to make prior to the public hearing. And I would like to focus our attention on that this evening and postpone that items of code until the next meeting.
All right, so you're gonna move it to the next meeting then? Okay.
Does anyone else have comments? Commissioner Brault,
No, I have no comment.
Commissioner Rudke,
I have no comment either. That's fine.
are there any other proposed amendments to the agenda? Hearing none.
The only thing that, Chairman Brown, the only thing that I have a comment is, I do have a motion that I wanted to introduce tonight regarding the housing on, the chapter on housing. And it's just to modify one of the objectives or include another objective. So I was wondering if we could possibly take a look at that, and maybe instead of number 7, we could insert my my motion into, or my discussion for a motion for number 7 instead. It'd be
This is what chapter on housing?
it is chapter, it's on chapter
Are you saying part of the comprehensive plan?
yes, on the comprehensive plan. Mhm.
Well, you know, we, the commission approved the draft comprehensive plan. And if we make changes to the draft comprehensive plan, we have to start the 60-day clock again for public comment. So
So there's no way to insert anything into it without having to start the clock all over again?
you can individually submit items to be considered at the public hearing, either in writing or at the public hearing as individuals, but the commission has acted on the comprehensive plan. And we, as I understand it, if the commission wishes to make substantive changes that do not flow from the public comments, either written or oral at the public hearing, then we have to hold another public hearing.
So would that be
Chairman
considered,
Brown.
I'm sorry, would that be considered substantive, substantial then, introducing something for another objective, or?
Well, you're adding an objective to the comprehensive plan?
Mhm. One of the goals, yeah, one of the objectives to the
I mean,
housing chapter.
you sent this out earlier this afternoon to all the commissioners.
Right,
I
right.
haven't had a chance to study it. I've been busy
Oh,
with other things.
okay.
Um,
All right, so you're saying that we can't add it to our agenda and make any,
Well, if
Any
we want to
changes?
start over with the public hearing, but I don't.
I feel pretty strongly that I think we made a big mistake not inserting this kind of idea into that chapter. I don't know how I missed it before, but I think we need a discussion on it. I really do. And it might mean that we have to,
Well, you can
to-
add it, you can put that in for discussion at the public hearing, if you feel that strongly about it, but
well, then I guess
I
that's
would
maybe,
strongly recommend that we not discuss the comprehensive plan until the public has their comments on it. That's what the law says,
Chairman,
so
Chairman Brown,
just a minute.
do you not think that, okay, I think that my concern is if we don't introduce this tonight and we don't put it in, then the public comments will be invalid because they won't be seeing what possibly might be reintroduced into the comprehensive plan if we change the objectives. So I'm feeling pretty strongly that I think we need to make a change in this housing chapter. I'm sorry, Chris, if you're listening. But I don't know how.
You can make that recommendation as an individual at the public hearing, either in writing to the commission or stand up as an individual, but the commission has acted on the draft comprehensive plan. It throws a 60-day delay in everything to start changing it now. The
So
public
would you,
has the draft comprehensive plan. They don't have your amendment. They haven't had a chance to look at it. So it's unfair to the public to show up at the public hearing in a week or two and say, oh, by the way, we changed the plan. Well, you haven't had a chance to see it.
so then would you recommend that I put it on the agenda for discussion on?
The public makes the agenda because it's the public comments that will be our agenda for what. Let's discuss this under item number 5 on tonight's agenda, how we're going to do the public hearing.
Okay, all right, very good. And maybe we can discuss how I could introduce this. Okay, I'm good with that. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Blackwelder, you had a comment?
my comment can be discussed as part of item number 5.
Okay, thank you. All right, so do we have a vote to approve the agenda as amended by deleting number 7 in the written agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, appears to be unanimous. Moving on to the minutes. Number 3 on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the September 22nd Planning and Zoning meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
Is that Commissioner Greengold that seconded that?
Yes, sir, yes.
Thank you. Okay, any
I'd like to
discussion?
make a motion to amend.
Okay, Commissioner Blackwelder.
I sent this out a couple days after our meeting. It's a motion to amend the minutes to reflect a conversation that occurred at approximately the 42-minute mark in our meeting. And you have all received that in type.
Yes, you sent that email out to everybody.
Yes, I did. So I would like to make a motion to include that discussion and.
If you'll
I'll
look
read
at the bottom, of page 2 of the minutes, it's already there.
Page 2 of the minutes.
Minutes of,
Begins with Commissioner Blackwelder described her difficulty when trying to find the covenant and plat when attempting to research the property in Calvert County land records. Correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So it's already in there. So what is your motion?
My motion would be to include that entire discussion. I must have a different copy of the minutes than, I must have read them before this was included. So, yes, I would like to include that discussion. I think it's an important discussion. It's an important for us to remember. And if you have included it, Chairman Brown, I appreciate that.
Well, it's in the packet that was distributed and is publicly available on the website. But it brings up
Okay.
a point. Last year or earlier, we discussed the written minutes as opposed to the video record of our minutes. And it was decided that we would keep the minutes to focus on decisions, the written minutes, focus on decisions that were made rather than try and make a record of all the discussions that were going on. The problem with, in my view, including some version of the discussions that hasn't been adopted by the commission is that one, it's not complete. The complete record is the video record. And two, it makes it appear that the commission is emphasizing certain things and de-emphasizing other discussions. This is the way that we were supposed to be doing things. And I would like to return to that, where our written minutes are the decisions that were made by this commission. We've kind of gotten off that track. And in the future, I want to return to that. But at this time, we have several discussions in the minutes. The minutes are 3 pages long. The town council minutes with 8 officers' reports only come up to 5 pages. Ours are 3 pages, and it just seems to me to be redundant.
So Chairman Brown.
The other issue that I would like to bring up is sending emails to everybody. We've gotten into a bad habit lately where commissioners are sending emails, an email blast to all the commissioners with their comments, their ideas. That's commission business. And all of our business, all of you have taken and have recorded the course in the Maryland Open Meetings Act, which says that all our business has to be conducted in public. The Chesapeake Beach Town Code, section 290-31E3, says that all planning commission meetings shall be open to the public. In the last couple of weeks, we got an email from one commissioner that says, my email was intended for everyone, especially anyone who might request a revision. For now, I will address everything to all. I believe, in my opinion, that's a violation. To continue doing this is a violation of the Maryland Open Meetings Act, if not a violation, at least the perception of a violation. And I would like to keep our skirts clean, if you will, and not get back into old habits. If you recall, last October 21st, the town administrator sent an email to everyone in the commission saying, and I quote, one topic that can be an unintended violation of the Open Meetings Act is holding a discussion via email to a quorum of commissioners. I would suggest sending items directly to Larry, or in this case, Sharon, rather than all commission members to avoid that issue. And I would hope you would join me in following the town administrator's advice. You'll notice that when I get an email that one of the commissioners is addressed to all the commissioners, I generally do not respond. because that creates a conversation. So I'm asking that you all join me in re-implementing that that process. I'm not asking for comments tonight. I would just appreciate your participation in that. So,
So Chairman Brown,
Blackwell,
points
you
on
have
that.
the floor.
thank you. Just two quick points on that. We need to see agenda items prior to the meeting in order to adequately prepare to discuss them on our own accord. And I don't know of any instance where we discussed proposed agenda items over email. I think we've all adhered to the rules where if we're going to submit our agenda items, we're not going to discuss them, but we are submitting them as agenda items. And then second, if we're only going to, first of all, we record discussions all the time in the meeting minutes. You know, they seem to be selected based on, for various reasons. I'm not to judge what the reasons are, but if we're going to have a discussion and then the minutes are going to read, Chris Jakubiak will address this issue, then we're not acting on it. We're trusting Chris Jakubiak to address the issue in the way that our discussion reflected. And quite often that doesn't happen, specifically with the addressing of this 200-acre parcel, which I have submitted for the agenda to be posted for the public benefit multiple times. And we have never seen this parcel put out to the public so that the public could see which parcel it is that we're talking about. And I guarantee if the public saw that that parcel had a discussion and something to talk about, they would become interested, but it has not yet made any agenda or any minutes. So, you know, I fear if we don't submit our agenda items to the group, that they'll never see the light of day. So I think that submitting agenda items that we intend to put on the agenda is not a violation of the Open Meetings Act, provided that we don't discuss it. So if there is, I guess, you know, appropriate addressing of agenda items that we submit, and they do find themselves on the agenda, then I think that we can operate in that way. But I've asked to put that 200-acre parcel on the agenda as part of the packet at least 4 times, and it has never made it to public view.
Okay, are you finished?
Yes.
The first of all, the agenda items get published by the town on the town's website. We try and do that a week or 2 in advance, so everyone gets to see what the agenda is, not just the commissioners. You have the opportunity at the beginning of every meeting to add or delete items from the agenda, as we just did. So to suggest that people don't have an opportunity to add to the agenda, I don't understand. With regard to the 200-acre parcel, if you will read today's minutes, which have that parcel, the thing you requested at the last meeting has been added to the minutes. So I'm really confused about your insistence that it hasn't been discussed. It's been just, you brought it up many times in our meetings. It's been, it's on the video record. It's now in the minutes of this meeting. So I find the whole suggestion that somehow it's being hidden from the public to be rather wrong. So that's my statement. You can take or leave what I've requested with regard to the Open Meetings Act. You will do what you will do, but I'm just asking that we try and be more cautious about using email as a way of promoting ideas that we have or suggestions. So if there's no more discussion, do we have a motion and we have a second. Do we have approval of the minutes? All
Aye.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so I believe the
Aye.
minutes have been approved. Moving on to item number 4, public comment on any item on the agenda. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on today's agenda? I see Mr. Blitz, I believe, has a hand up. So Mr. Blitz, if you would like to, I believe you have 2 minutes, and we appreciate you sticking to that.
Thank you, Chairman Brown and Chairman Brown and the members of the commission. My name is Eric Blitz on behalf of the Rod and Reel. Just a simple question. I think you're going to deal with how the meeting for the comprehensive plan review is going to go. So given the dramatic and overwhelming number of changes that the draft comprehensive plan makes to the town's existing comprehensive plan, my question is, when you hold the public hearing on that plan, is the public going to be limited to 2 minutes to present their comments? And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that remains to be seen if we have 500 people show up, which I doubt, to make comments. We'll have to manage the time that we have and to make sure that we hear from everybody. So whether it'll be 2 minutes or what it'll be will depend on how active the meeting is. So is there anyone else that would like to comment? Hearing none, Mr. Jakubiak, would you like to preview the procedure for the public hearing and how we're going to manage that?
Sure. The public hearing would be opened by the chair with some introductory comments and some welcoming statements. Then I would propose to give a brief overview of the plan, perhaps 5 to 10 minutes, staying away from getting into real details. There is a kind of a presumption that the community has had a chance to read the plan, and thus our purpose is to hear from the public, and not so much to hear from me. So I would give a brief summary, introduction, and overview of the plan and the basic purpose of comprehensive planning. And then, Mr. Chairman, you would, as is typical with public hearings, open the hearing up for public comments in some logical sequence. And after everyone has had a chance to provide comments to the commission, the commission hearing would be adjourned, and that would be the end of the evening. So that's the typical format and for these comprehensive plan public hearings. There may be, and will likely be, documents that arrive as part of the written record, and I could, as part of my brief presentation, highlight that we received the following letters from the following people, and that they were available and part of the public record. So that's something we could do as well. Just to acknowledge, receive comments.
You say it'll be available in the public record. Where will the public get to go to look at this record? Have to go to get.
Yeah, well, it's probably the optimum way of doing it is to post those letters on the Planning Commission's website, on the town's website, on the Planning Commission's link under the comprehensive plan section, so that between the public hearing date and the planning commission's meeting, anyone who's interested could read what other people wrote into the comprehensive plan. Some communities take the comprehensive plan as an opportunity to actually read into the record letters that people send. And that's a possibility too. That can get kind of cumbersome because some of the letters are very extensive. More often people show up and say, I'm going to summarize my comments and also submit the following documents into the record. And that's a great approach. That's the preferred approach. And we do keep physical copies of those letters, but certainly it would be advisable to post them on the town's website, as I mentioned.
Have you, can you give us a preview of what you've received to date?
I've not received any written comments to date.
You've had a number of public sessions where people can come and call you or talk to you. How has that gone?
It's gone pretty well. But I've been making it clear to folks who show up that the purpose is to ask questions and allow me a chance to answer questions so that I could help prepare people to make a public statement, to clarify any questions they might have so they can provide a really good set of public comments to the Planning Commission. So I've not taken any comments per se. I've just we've had a number of activities. On October 5th, I met in the town hall. I was on call there and people could schedule a time to come meet with me to ask any questions. And four people did. On October 6th, I was on call for the phone calls, but no one scheduled a time to call, so I didn't get any phone calls. But on October 19th, we had a Q&A session, a virtual meeting, essentially. And we had a number of people show up for that, including 3 council people. And maybe 3 or 4 people asked questions, and that's all recorded. I've not seen the recording, but most of the questions were, the questions were focused, really good questions, and I, answered them as best I could. And then on November 1st, I'll be back in the town hall for another in-person series of meetings. And I believe we have at least one person signed up so far. Sharon keeps the record of those, or keeps the schedule, but I'll be there from the early morning through the afternoon until for anybody who might want to show up to ask specific questions. And of course, some of those questions are asked by people who have very special interest and want to know how the plan would actually affect their expectations. So they're not intended to be publicly stated. They want to know what the plan says so that they could offer you comments at the public hearing.
Now, you said these were recorded. Where is that recording?
I'll have to defer to Sharon or Holly in terms of where the October 19th Q&A session is recorded.
Sure. Chairman, that is available on the town's YouTube channel, and it's on the Planning and Zoning Commission playlist, and it's linked on our website as well. Thank
you. I know at least one commissioner asked about viewing that, so that'll be helpful.
Right.
Commissioner Greengold, we'll go around. Everybody can ask their questions. Commissioner Greengold, your questions of process for the public hearing.
Okay, Chris, then obviously we as commissioners don't provide any answers to any of the comments or questions that people might have, but how does that process work as far as when people make public comments, then we just move on to the next public comment, or does anybody give them an answer, or how does it work at that point? Do commissioners make any comments at all?
Yeah, ideally the commissioners won't make comments and engage in deliberations or discussions with people who are making comments, because it could really get out of hand. It's usually best for the commission or anybody conducting a hearing should just simply record and listen carefully and take notes and absorb what the comments are, rather than to exchange, questions and answers. Inevitably, people will ask a question. They'll use an opportunity to ask a question. Some of them are rhetorical and they're meant to make a point, which is always a useful way of making a comment. But some people have very specific questions, and sometimes it's hard for me to answer everybody's specific question in a public hearing, and so it's generally a good thing for the chair running the hearing to say, the purpose is not to answer any specific questions. We've provided multiple opportunities for questions and answers, and you still have an opportunity if you want to ask the planner for any questions. But today we want to hear your comments and record what your thoughts and views are on the draft plan. So I hope that answers it, Cindy. Kind of long-winded, but.
And if we want to make another point ourselves, do we come in as a private citizen and do it, or do we put it on an agenda, or how would you best, have us comment ourselves?
Well, if you were going to make a comment as an individual, not as a planning commission, I suppose you would. I suppose you would get called in the sequence of citizens who have signed up and have an opportunity to state your comment. Yeah, I've not seen it before, a situation where a planning commissioner offered individual comments, but I suppose that happens from time to time, and I guess you would just simply do it not in any official capacity, and make it clear I'm speaking on behalf of myself or my family and myself or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
But certainly you don't give up your right to express your own concerns by virtue of being a member of the commission. So.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Baralt.
Thank you, Chairman Brown. I just have a few questions. So my understanding is when our questions have stopped or comments by the public have stopped and it's obvious that there are no more, the meeting will then cease. Is that right?
Yes, just to be clear, the hearing will cease.
Right. Okay.
Of course, a planning commission has the ability, if they've announced it ahead of time, to actually hold a meeting after the hearing. They would close the hearing and then they would move into an open meeting. But you have to announce that in advance, and as we would a typical meeting. And sometimes communities have done that when there are only a few comments and it looks like they don't, it's kind of pro forma. They listen to comments and they move right into deliberations. That happens with a lot of types of public hearings, but it's not typical of a comprehensive plan public hearing, because usually they draw out a lot of comments and there's a lot to listen to, and those meetings can go quite a distance into the night.
Okay. If I've attended several public hearings, and at times people have used the opportunity to speak off topic. Will there be any redirection of comments that are off topic? And do you facilitate the actual hearing?
Well, I had not intended to facilitate the hearing, and that's something that if Larry would like to assign that responsibility to me, I can take on. But typically it's a chair who does that, who will call on people and be the judge if someone's going over or going. And if the time requires a chairman to say, refocus, stay on topic, or I have to remind you, you only have 2 minutes, then he or she could do that. But I think that's entirely at the, you know, the judgment of the chairman or the chairwoman, not me.
Okay, thank you. And my final question, so for people who, towns, and citizens who make a comment or they have a question, those questions are if they're not rhetorical, they're never responded to in any fashion. We don't take an opportunity at a later time to make a comment on that as a body.
You certainly could. There's nothing saying that you can't, and I certainly can and have answered questions for people and followed up, and I am always available and willing to do that to you know, explain the plan. But this meeting, the public hearing is a formal event, really, and it's a chance for everybody who wants to speak to get their comments out, and questions and answers can really break down and take a lot of time from people's ability to share their opinions with you. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Blackwelder.
So my main question is that on several occasions, Chris, you had mentioned that the Planning Commission could put out a statement at the public hearing discussing things that we had considered after we had published the draft plan. And that we would do that as a commission, and then we would get that on record as part of the public hearing. And by doing so, we could then act on those items that we mentioned. Is that, am I summarizing your words correctly?
Essentially, yes.
Okay, so that's what I would like to work on tonight, because there are several items that I think we had discussed adding to a public statement by the Planning Commission as part of the public hearing. And then my second question is, I'm not going to swear I read this, but I think I might have read that a planning commissioner individual comment can't be considered. Is there any reason to worry that that could happen, that an individual planning commissioner that makes a public comment as a private citizen, that comment would not be actionable?
I don't know, Lori. I was thinking that individual members could offer the comments, and it's a public hearing. So if we need to get a legal interpretation, we could refer to the town's attorney for an opinion.
Okay, because that, you know, we would need to address anything that we might say individually now as a planning commission is my take on that, because we don't have that legal opinion right now. And those are my two questions. Has Jan gone?
No, I haven't.
Is that it, Commissioner Blackwelder?
Before we move on from, we are on item number 5, correct?
That's
before
correct.
we move on from number 5, I have a motion to make, but I think it's Jan's turn to have her questions asked.
Before, would you say that again? Before we move, we're on number 5 right now.
That's correct. I mean, I don't want to, I can make my motions now. I just don't want to mess up the flow
Okay, well-
of Jan having her questions asked.
Okay, well, after Commissioner Rutke asks the question, we'll open it up for motions. Commissioner
Thank you.
Rutke,
Yeah, mine is really very simple. Is there an expectation that we would be at this hearing or should be at the hearing as commissioners, not as individual people? Or should we not be?
You should be present as the planning commission.
Okay,
That's right. You'll be present and accounted for as planning commission members.
gotcha. Okay.
So
Okay,
that's why I would say if you were going to offer a personal comment, you sort of have to step down from the dais, if you will. And we don't have formal seating in a virtual hearing, of course. So if you're going to express a personal opinion, I think you've got to be very clear that this is a personal issue and that it's not coming from the planning commission as a body.
Gotcha.
and just for everybody's information, the hearing will take place at Town Hall. You can participate virtually if you prefer, but I will be there. I believe Chris will be there at the Town Hall. The other commissioners, it's your choice. But the public will be invited to speak at the Town Hall or to speak via Zoom virtually. So that's the mechanics of the hearing. Couple thoughts. I fully intend to run the hearing unless the commission would prefer Chris Jakubiak to manage the hearing, but someone will have to make a motion to that effect because as chairman, I intend to run it. You mentioned, Chris, that we're getting comments. I know we've gotten at least one, I've gotten one email with a number of questions and observations. How are we going to, are you going to put together a list of these pertinent comments that we need to address, or how are we going to manage the mechanics of addressing individuals' comments?
Whatever comments we receive up to the hearing, we will provide to the planning commission. I think as it's a matter of kind of process, administrating the process, we should probably within a week, whatever comments we have, submit it to you before the hearing. And then what often happens is that we don't get comments until the day before or even the day of, even from the various governmental agencies. In any case, as soon as we get those types of those types of comments, we'll send them to you. But they all go into a folder, a physical folder as part of the hearing record, and they will be posted online as part of the digital record of the hearing.
Okay, well,
Chairman Brown.
we will need to organize them in some manner so that all of the commissioners are looking at the same comment at the same time when we consider it, because I believe the correct way to do this is, as you suggested, to listen to the public at the public hearing, and then after the hearing is over at our the meeting that follows or the next meeting, we start reviewing the comments and addressing how we're going to resolve it or deal with it. So we'll need to have some order of the comments for the commissioners to look at.
Okay.
And I'll work with you, I guess, on that, but that'll have to be organized at the hearing or shortly after.
Okay.
Chairman
Uh,
Brown,
Just a second. The November hearing, I would like to propose to the commission, or I'll make a motion to the commission that we plan on it being that a commission meeting follow immediately after the hearing, and announce that so we can get it on the record and we can make it public. And if we have time, the public will know that we're going to begin dealing with the issues that have been raised. So do I have a second for that?
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion that the November 7th hearing will be immediately followed with a planning commission meeting. All in favor?
You mean November 9th? Is that?
November
Ninth.
9th.
9th, I'm sorry, November 9th.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay,
Aye.
it's unanimous. So we will have that hearing. Now, Commissioner Blackwelder, you had a motion.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that, as suggested by Chris Jakubiec, that we include a list of items to put on the record at the November 9th public hearing that the Planning and Zoning Commission plans to address. That we create that list.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Now, what you're proposing is that the commission have a list of items that the commission wants to address at the hearing? I don't see that as appropriate, frankly. The commission, we can deal with public comments, but we don't have, the commission isn't objecting to its own comprehensive plan.
So Chairman Brown, on several occasions, Chris Jakubiec said that if we wanted to address something after we posted the draft, that the way that we would address it is we would announce at the public hearing that we have thought about this and we intend to address it possibly in this way, or we intend to explore it further. That's been part of our discussions 2 meetings now in a row. And there are some things that went out in the public hearing draft that we agreed to, publish as amended. And I think it's important that we mention that we are going to address it in the plan that we forward to the town council. And
Oh,
so,
I apologize. Go ahead, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay. If you'd like, I can mention what those items were. You did receive them in a document, or you can finish your comment and then I could explain what those items are that I would like to mention as part of a list at our public hearing.
Well, what you're suggesting is that we mention a list of commission-approved items to change the comprehensive plan, and I find that, first of all, I apparently missed the section where we approve this list of items that you've mentioned, and each of them would have to be discussed, considered. I think it is much more. You have a list of items that you want to change in the comprehensive plan, and Commissioner Greengold has some items that at least one item that she wants to change in the comprehensive plan. Submit those as an individual. You can submit them in writing, and they'll be added as something from the comment in the public comment period. But to submit it as the commission, then the commission's going to have to look at your list, review your list, vote on each item. And then it's convoluted. It's much simpler if you as individuals submit items which you disagree with or you find should be changed, and we can add those to the list of items to be considered after the public hearing.
Respectfully, Chairman Brown, that is not the way Chris Jakubiec described this process to us. I don't think that that would be simpler. I think it would be much simpler to hammer that out now and provide the public with a list of things that we will address further. My number one item on that list would be to document the FIBS habitat on the zoning map in the comprehensive plan. But I
Well,
did
that's your
provide-
number one item, but it's not, the commission hasn't agreed to make that the number one item that they want changed in the comprehensive plan. And if we're going to have a meeting about changing the comprehensive plan, I don't know how you can distinguish that from changing the comprehensive plan as the commission, which then triggers a 60-day review period for the public to look at the changes that you want to make. Now, let me read to you what Chris said in emails, because I recorded it before the meeting. Said, after the public hearing, the only substantive changes to be made are those that respond directly to the comments received at the public hearing or in writing during the 60-day review period. After the public, in another email, he said, after the public hearing, if the Planning Commission wishes to make substantive changes that do not flow from or respond to public comments, it must hold another public hearing. Now, I don't know what comments you're referring to about Chris agreeing to this process that you've described, but that's what he wrote in emails, and that's what I'm acting on. So if the
Chairman Brown,
commission wants to change the comprehensive plan, we can do that, but you're triggering a new hearing date.
Chairman Brown, what Chris said in our September 22nd meeting is what I submitted as part of our minutes. And he said the Planning Commission could point out on record at the comprehensive plan public hearing that we would be making changes necessary to highlight this area on the map and to highlight and protect existing protective easements. That's something that he said publicly in our meeting. My actions have been and decisions have been based on the fact that we would get an opportunity to do that, and it would be much cleaner and much easier to just go ahead and put those items on a list, present them in our public hearing so that we can address them in the comprehensive plan.
Well, I disagree, but anyway, you have your motion. We have a second. All in favor of making a list that of things the commission has approved to change the comprehensive plan? I believe that's the correct wording, unless you want to change it. Hearing no change.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So the items that we would be putting on the list, do we have to agendize those items, or how do we discuss them and put them forward? I guess I'm asking a procedural question, how that works.
You're asking me, I think.
Yes, Chairman Brown, I'm sorry.
My answer is that's what I just earlier asked Chris about. We would take all the comments, we would put them into order so that they could be.
I'm referring to Lori's question about her motion.
Oh.
So in other words, we're going to make a list right now, but do we have to agendize that list to validate it for the meeting to make it go forward? Do we have to?
I'm confused.
Do you see what I'm asking? I mean, I will go ahead and go along with Lori's motion. I just want to make sure that whatever we put forward is valid as far as, you know, taking forward to including in on the comprehensive plan. I don't want to put things forward that we haven't
Chairman Brown?
done appropriately.
Chairman Brown?
Commissioner Rutke.
Yeah, I also remember, not in great detail, some reference to the fact that after we submitted the comprehensive plan to the public, that there would be an opportunity if we had other things that didn't get into the comprehensive plan. I don't specifically remember that it was, those things would be as an individual, but Lori, is your list a list of things that we discussed in detail and we're in agreement on? Or is this something that's particular to you personally?
So Jan, my list is obviously I put things on my list that are of interest to me. We have discussed the things that I am bringing up on several occasions, but you know, in general, this is a procedural issue, and Chris has said time and again that while in the comprehensive planning process, if it comes to light that we need to address something further or in a different way or in a more nuanced way, that how we would handle that would be to make a public statement at the public hearing to let the public know that we would be addressing those along with their public comments. And that's how I understood the procedure to be.
Right.
So that's how I'd like us to go about business tonight. I would like to come prepared with a list of items that we agree on to add to the public meeting as a planning commission comment.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Jakubiec.
thanks. Much has been said of what I said. I said that in the spirit of not advocating or adopting changes here to the plan at the last minute, or even suggesting to the community that the planning commission's changing the plan, but to describe things in a clearer way. So the focus on this 200-acre parcel, for instance, the plan is all about protecting that land. And what we talked about after the plan was published, I believe, was that we could put a symbol on it to show it as a wildlife bird sanctuary, and we can make references to it in the text. These are not substantive changes. They don't change the plan. They just provide a way of communicating to the public the level of influence that the Planning Commission is devoting to the topic. What concerned me about what Commissioner Blackwater is saying is that she used the word change, or at least in your review of the motion, it suggested changes to the plan. And I don't think the Planning Commission wants to approve changes to the plan, then present them to the public at the public hearing. But things that we're talking about at that previous meeting, sure. I mean, talk about, yeah, there's this acreage and we want to protect it. And I offered actually to say that I would say those things. I mean, I will say that, the Planning Commission discussed this, and one way to symbolize that is to do that. And we're going to beef the section up, that type of thing, but not to change the plan. I hope that clarifies things. So.
Chairman Brown?
Right.
Commissioner Brawl.
Yes, I just want to offer the comment. I think that if we are going to make any modification, if there's going to be a list at the public hearing, I definitely think that list or a modification that we want should be made as commission members. I don't believe it should be made as private citizens, because for me, it seems like we're now stepping out of our role and to get something in there in a I don't know, a less than official venue. And I guess it seems funny that I might have an opinion that I want to modify something, but now I'm speaking as Kathleen, citizen, no longer a commission member. And I feel that that's going to be confusing, because then it seems like what's my own personal agenda and what's the agenda as a commissioner. And I think that would be confusing. And my my only other comment is, I, I think we should also address the fact that, or have a discussion about, the planning and zoning, the commissioners all being present or not being present, because I think it's important that we are a unified body. So I think we should have some discussion about the commissioners' feelings about actually being present for the meeting, on the night. So I just wanted to offer those two comments.
Okay, thank you. All right, so you want to restate your motion that has been seconded, Commissioner Blackwelder?
Yes, my motion reads, as suggested by Chris Jakubiec, include a list of items to put on record at the November 9th public hearing that the Planning and Zoning Commission plans to address.
Is this a list that you provide or Commissioner or Mr. Jakubiec provides? What is the source of this list?
I do have motions of items that I would like to include on this list. And Chairman Brown, you have all of this. You've had it since 2 days after our last planning and
Well,
zoning meeting.
you sent it to everybody, but it would
Right.
be it's in a motion now to add things to the list. So if you would articulate what these items are that you want to put on the list for everybody's benefit.
Have we seconded my first motion, or do you want me to just go down?
I'll second that motion. I'll second that second motion.
Well, you've said you wanted to add a list. What is on the list? I mean, saying that Mr. Jakubiec is going to provide a list at the hearing, which is in 2 weeks, without seeing what the list is confusing to me, at least.
My intent was that we would make the list now, but I do have some items. So if you'd like me to read them, I can. But my idea was that we'd make a motion to make a list, and then I'd make a motion for items to be on the list. And then other commissioners, if they had items that they thought that we had discussed addressing further, that they would add those items that they thought we should include on said list.
All right, so your motion is to make a list. Is that correct?
That's correct.
If you'd restate the motion for Sharon so that she can write it down correctly, and then we can all vote on it.
The motion is, as suggested by Chris Jakubiec, include a list of items to put on record at the November 9th public hearing that the Planning and Zoning Commission plans to address.
I'd like to take out the as suggested by Chris Jakubiec. That's pejorative. You're suggesting that the commission put together a list to be presented at the on November 9th meeting of alterations to the comprehensive plan that the commission.
No, I did not say alteration.
Okay.
I said, but.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Well, we need your words.
Okay. I would like to make a motion for the Planning and Zoning Commission to include a list of items to put on record at the November 9th public hearing that the Planning and Zoning Commission plans to address.
Okay, that's the motion. We had a second. All in favor?
Do we have discussion about it? I just have a question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay, more discussion.
I just wanted to ask when we would be dealing with the issues. Will we be dealing with them that night or at another time? In other words, we need to pinpoint when we're going to be discussing or dealing with the issues.
That would
Actually-
be after the public hearing.
It's in Commissioner Blackwelder's motion. So what are you proposing?
I'm just asking if we're going
No,
to.
I understand.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I understand your question. The question, I think, is for Commissioner Blackwelder. When is she proposing that this list be addressed?
I would say that this list would become part of the discussion along with the public comments that we receive when we finalize the plan to forward to the town council.
Okay.
Chairman Brown,
Commissioner Rudke.
Lori, there's one thing that's kind of missing from this for me that I really don't understand. Are the things you're talking about things that we have discussed that if we'd taken longer to submit, to present our comprehensive plan, that we were in agreement with? So in other words, if we do this formally, that means that all of us believe that those action items are things we agree with. And
That's
that,
correct. So I'm sorry, Jen, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, maybe it's been so long since I've seen what you sent out. That's what you're referring to, correct?
Yes, and
But-
honestly, we could make the motion to make this list, and then if no items make it on the list, somebody can make a motion to, not make a list. So I just think it's cleaner in two parts, make a list, discuss the items on the list.
Chairman Brown,
If
I'm just
somebody-
I'm sorry, Chairman Brown, I am just concerned that we may have jumped the gun on completing this comprehensive, on sending this out to public hearing, that maybe we're not done with this comprehensive plan after all. Maybe we need to move the hearing date out. As you mentioned earlier, that maybe we need some changes and we're not completed. We haven't finalized it yet. And maybe that's what Lori's really telling us. And she may have a point.
Clearly, Commissioner Blackwelder has things she wants addressed. The question is, how many of these items are on your list, Commissioner Blackwelder?
Can we make a motion to make the list, and then I'll read my list?
Can you tell us how many items are on your list?
1, 2, 3. 5 or so. They're all items that we've discussed. They
Well,
deal
if we
with
discussed
district
them, then we
description.
resolved them, and they weren't in the comprehensive plan. I mean,
No, Chairman Brown, we did not resolve them. We got a notion from Chris that he would resolve them, and the way that he resolved them is not the way that I believe they should be resolved.
Okay, so you disagree with the way it was written. I got that.
Yes.
Lori, Chairman Brown,
Yes,
Lori-
Commissioner Rudke, please.
yeah, what I am still struggling with is that I think it's going to be confusing. We've put out our comprehensive plan, and now we're going to take something to the meeting that says there are a number of items that we're going to be looking at, which I think sends a very mixed message to the people in town, because maybe we need to withdraw the comprehensive plan and finish it, which I'm not suggesting we do. But if we take this list, it's kind of like an amendment almost feeling thing to the comprehensive plan. And I think that's going to confuse the hell out of the public.
Well,
That's my
I
read.
think it's
Just to, I agree with you, Commissioner Rudke. It seems to me, if you want to add something to be considered, putting it in a public comment, providing it would go onto the list of items that we would then address, could then change the comprehensive plan. It seems to me that that's the proper way of doing this. To try and go back and say we're incomplete with the comprehensive plan and we need to go back and rewrite it, I think it'll be very confusing to the public, and I'm not sure the town will appreciate that.
Well, we should not have discussed the process in that vein if we were not going to do that. So if I may, I'd like to read some of the items on my list.
Commissioner Blackwelder.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay. Motion to include on said list documentation of the existing land use map and all overlays and existing conditions section of the land use chapter. That's not a change to the plan. It's simply documentation of what exists in our comprehensive plan now in the existing conditions chapter. It's not a substantive
Would
change.
you say that again, what you want covered? Because as I recall, the last discussion when this was mentioned was all easements, which is an enormous, unworkable job for the zoning administrator.
My motion is to include documentation of the existing land use map and all overlays in the existing conditions section of the land use chapter. And it is not a big act. It's taking the existing land use map and the existing overlay map and popping them into the plan and including them as existing conditions, which they are.
Okay, well, I understand you do not believe it's a big ask. Let me ask the man who would have to do it, what you think of that proposal. Commissioner, Mr. Jakubiec.
Thanks. The existing conditions map is the standard, existing condition map that land use map that you'll see in any comprehensive plan. I don't know what the overlay map is that's being referred to here. I just know that there's a map in the plan that shows the existing conditions. And it's there, it exists. I don't understand what the overlay is, and thus I don't understand how the two get combined.
So Chris, the overlay is just the critical area overlay map. That's one of the zoning maps.
So you're asking that the critical area overlay, the critical area map be included in the plan?
As an existing condition.
Well, I mean, we can do that.
Sounds administrative to me.
Yeah, it doesn't require a meeting. I mean, that's
right.
something that
That's all it is.
I would readily do.
Right.
Anyway, so.
That would be.
But I'm not gonna merge the two documents together. We're gonna take the critical area map and we're gonna reference that and not have a mapping scenario where we've got to interpret a critical area document and blend it with this. I think it's best to just use the critical area map that exists now. And it could go in an appendix if we want to keep the flow of the document the same. But Lori, that's such a detail that we can, that's not substantive to this plan.
Right. So I would say that that item would be on our list, that we would include the existing conditions map and the existing conditions overlay map in existing conditions. That, as Jan said, is administrative. My second item with the map is that we add the addition of a bird icon and the words covenant protected forest interior dwelling bird habitat on the proposed land use map on the 200-acre parcel bordering Richfield Station. That also is a fairly easy addition to the comprehensive plan. It enhances what we've already talked about, and it puts solid documentation of the disposition of that land as we've described it. So that also is administrative. It's an enhancement, and I think we need it so that we can, in the future, title attorneys, any planning commissioners, anybody that is dealing with that parcel, it will be clear, it will be legal, and on a map.
Chairman
So,
Brown?
I believe I believe Chris has already said that that's doable without making a change to the plan. That's a simple change, which that will happen. Commissioner Rutke,
Right.
what?
Yeah, no, what I was going to say is, Lori, I agree with those items, but those items are, as I said earlier, administrative. They don't, having them brought to the town in a hearing situation, I don't think makes sense, and potentially it's confusing. I think that's just something that we should be doing.
So Jan,
Yeah.
the public hasn't seen those administrative changes. That's why we would need to put them in the public hearing and say, we will be making these administrative changes. Do you kind of get the point of my list?
Yeah, but they're not material changes that the town, they're
Absolutely
enhancements.
not. Exactly, but in some ways, they're not material changes, they are enhancements, but the public has not seen the plan as such. So I think just listing them, as Chris described, as a procedural option would be the best way to address adding enhancements that aren't brought by the public. And I don't want to get in a situation where we can't add those enhancements because we haven't made them part of our public hearing. Like, I don't want to start the clock over because we stick a bird and 4 words on the land use map in our plan.
Right. Nobody wants to do that. I guess Chris needs to answer the question, can we do those things after the fact without the public seeing the bird? And I'm not being smart ass. I mean, we're talking literally here. All right, you stop giggling. So Chris, can we just do this? I mean,
Yeah, yes, we can do this. We can just do it. It doesn't hurt to say that during my comments that, these are things that we'll be additionally doing.
for clarification or whatever.
I think it's better to be as transparent as possible. And so as long as we're not talking about changes to the plan, I think these are kind of things that I just would like to, the sort of the intent of this was to allow us to keep to our schedule and not continue to make a number of kind of non-substantive changes to the plan weekly and monthly. And so that we could just say, okay, these things, we're going to make those changes. They make sense. And so the suggestion I made was, well, let's all just get on board with these non-substantive changes so we know ahead of time what's going to be made. And I can mention it to the public because I thought there was a concern at one of the meetings that, we didn't want to get out in front of the community about some changes. We wanted to be clear about what we would do and what we wouldn't do.
Okay, so as I understand it, the 2 suggestions thus far can be done without providing any list. So Commissioner Blackwelder, next.
But will they be done? I guess that's the question, because I want to make sure that they are done. And sometimes when, the resolution to our conversation is that they will be addressed by the planning and zoning administrator or the planner, they don't necessarily get addressed in that way. That's why we've talked about some things over and over again. So
they don't get addressed in the way that you would prefer, but the Planning Commission is a body of a number of members who each have a chance to review the plan. So let's be clear about it. The changes that get made, Sharon and I make the changes to the best extent possible. The plan was adopted or approved by you for public comment.
Okay, so can you review what you plan to say in the public hearing regarding those 2 conversations we just had?
No, I think it's clear. I don't want to waste the commission's time. We've said what I would say. I think it's clear to everybody. Mr. Chairman, if you want me to go on and give a pre-presentation now to shore up the lack of confidence this commissioner has in her planner, I will.
vote.
I think we better make the list.
Well, right now, we have a motion on the floor. We have a request to hear the list of items that Commissioner Blackwelder has. As I understand it, 2 have been presented. Both of them are doable in the discussion preceding the public hearing. So what's the next on the list? We have, what, 3 more to go?
Yes. To include clear wording in the resource conservation district description indicating the intent to preserve all existing conservation easements, open space, residue plats, and wildlife habitats.
So, Mr. Jakubiec, is that a substantive change or a editorial change? What you say?
It's a change that's redundant. We could add more language to the plan. It's up to the commission. It's in there. It's in the plan.
Okay, so that modification can be changed because it's just representing what's already there, as I understand our zoning administrator. So item number 4.
Okay. I'm skipping from the sheet that I gave you because this is probably an easier thing to go over first. I'd like to let the public know that we might be including a greater emphasis on the use of recreational trails and walkability as economic development tool. And B, an inclusion of a list of underrepresented or desired commercial uses that would be welcomed, that would be a welcomed addition to Chesapeake Beach. And we at one time did have that list. It just kind of never made it to the plan. So these are some enhancements. They don't conflict with the spirit of the plan, a little bit more complicated than the other things that I said, but those would be the 2 general comments that I would like to include on the list.
So do you have specific language at specific points in the comprehensive plan that you want to change?
So at one point, we had talked about storefront businesses, and Cindy and I had revised some of her words, and then somehow that didn't make it into our plan. It wasn't available at the meeting, and we never, in my opinion, that the conversation about storefront businesses and economic development for a diversity of businesses kind of isn't emphasized enough in our plan. I think we intended to, but
the question is, do you have the specific language? Since it wasn't put into the plan, you must have the specific language in the places you want to put it. Is that correct?
Yes, we've gone over that before.
No, I don't want to know that we did it before. You have it, and you can provide the specific page number and section that you want changed.
I can provide it. I don't have it in front of me right now because my motion is to make a general comment that we'd address it. But yes, I can provide it, and we have previously discussed it.
It's a substantive change, though. I think it's pretty extensive.
I don't know if it's substantive. It's a long
It's a
paragraph.
much
It was
bigger, yeah. Had a lot more information.
What happened was we took out some things that actually Chris had included, and we included some different wording. And then we had worked on revising it to include both things, but the business storefront piece of it got left out. And I think that we might even get some comments from the community, but it doesn't seem like the community is necessarily, fully in tune. They're kind of relying on what people ran on and we say we're doing. But I do believe there is a consensus within the community that family-friendly businesses are wanted and welcome. And I don't know that after we took that portion of our wording out, that our plan addresses that aspect of economic development as fully as we wanted to. So my motion was just to make a generalized comment that we would be looking into wording that will help emphasize
Well, if
wording
this is
that will
important
place
to
a
the
greater
public, you
emphasis-
don't think that the public will bring this up at the hearing?
I mean, the public hasn't been to any hearings. I mean, I could go around and
They
ask
have the
people to
comprehensive
participate.
plan, which is presumably absent this, the emphasis that you're talking about. Presumably, if the public is concerned, the public will say, where is it at?
I guess the reason that I would like to address this as a planning commission is because let's be real, the public is living their lives. They're relying on our leaders and us to make good decisions for the public, and they're not necessarily as focused on the comprehensive plan as we are and as the town council is. They are relying on us to make good decisions. I think that we intended to address this, that we took it out. I would like to see it go back in, but my number one priority is the 200-acre parcel and intensity, not
Yeah, and
crowding our roads, not overbuilding.
Okay, and you
So
had
I don't need
fifth
to.
one on your list that you were going to add?
So we've discussed those two. Do I need to read them again, or do you want me to read the new ones?
I think if I understand it correctly, the other commissioners want to know the substance of what we're talking about in a list. And so you were going to
Okay.
list the 5 things that you thought were necessary to be addressed. So that's all I'm asking is what's the 5th one?
Okay, so this was listed on number 3 on the document I provided you. It's a motion to include in the above said list, a greater emphasis on master planning the maritime and town center zones at the parcel level to account for density concerns, climate change related risk mitigation in the floodplain, and intended vision for the area. And B, a greater emphasis of the intended vision in the proposed district description of the Maritime District, indicating that the intent is to create a vibrant, walkable, visitor-friendly commerce and outdoor recreation area. We've discussed this. I think that, you know, the way that we're heading now with this comprehensive plan and the follow-on code, I don't know that we're going to do Chesapeake Beach the justice that it deserves. What's going to happen is we're going to get into 2 conversations. How high and how much variance for parking garages. And we're not going to address density. And density is first of all, the thing that can make us the most miserable is the over-intensification of property. We haven't really.
I think it's pretty clear to all the commissioners that density is an issue of great concern to you. You've mentioned it at every meeting, I think. So to suggest that we don't know that or is, well, I find that strange.
Right. I'm not saying that you don't know it.
I mean, as someone who would try and implement what you're providing on the list, provide greater emphasis. That to me is saying, guess again, you got it wrong the last time. I'll judge it when I see it, whether I like it or not. And I just find that very frustrating for someone who's trying to write a comprehensive plan, that if you want to provide specific language, specific places that you want that language, so we don't have to guess at what you're trying to achieve, but this greater emphasis on this or that, or just leaves me very frustrated.
Okay, and I apologize for being confusing about that. I think we did discuss master planning and we put it in, I guess, long-term planning. Do you remember that conversation, Chairman Brown?
We've discussed planning a lot. That's, I think, what they call this commission. But, you know, we've discussed it. We agreed on language. We went through it almost line by line. We were happy with it. But now we're going back and we're saying, no, it's not emphasized enough. And that's just very frustrating to me.
Well, it is frustrating because it's not emphasis enough, because we have not addressed.
Well, you had a
density.
chance
We
to
haven't done
object to it when we were discussing it, but it
Well, I
moved
did.
on. And if you
I
if you
did.
did object to it at the time, we had a motion, we had a vote, and whatever the vote was, we implemented. So I just find it very frustrating to be reinventing the wheel.
I understand that, Larry, but here's the problem. Our job is to make sure that we get the right plan for Chesapeake Beach, and if we don't address density,
Well,
then
that's
we're not
your
doing
opinion.
that, and we haven't.
That's your opinion, that our job, that's
Okay.
not my job. My job is to do the best plan for Chesapeake Beach. Your job is to do the best plan for Chesapeake Beach, but we disagree on rewriting the comprehensive plan over and over again and delaying its implementation while the town council keeps extending the moratorium on density, frankly, that you object to. I find it preposterous what's being delayed and deferred and discussed and blah, blah, blah.
Well,
So
Chairman Brown, at what point are we going to address density? I mean, the fire isn't the moratorium. The impetus is on getting a good plan. And so if we can't get a plan that addresses density in front of us, then we are not providing a good plan, and that's the truth.
well, you have your truth, I have mine. There's a motion on the floor to make a list, and we had a second. I believe, is there any other discussion?
I guess my question is, can we add to the lists?
Oh, sure.
Sorry.
Well, if we decide to have a list, the method that Commissioner Blackwelder proposed is that we first adopt the idea of a list, and then we'll go back and discuss the items to go on the list. And of course, any commissioner can add to them. I mean, you can make a motion to add to them, and the commission will decide. Since this is the commission's list, not Commissioner Blackwelder's list or Commissioner Greengold or Commissioner Brown's list, it's the commission's list. And so the commission will have to agree to each item on the list, and we can discuss that. So,
Okay.
is there any other discussion?
Chairman Brown?
Yes, Mr. Roll.
Yeah, I guess I fear what is happening. I totally understand for your concern about having Commissioner Blackwelder, about having these items be overlooked, not documented, and I understand that. I understand both of the issues of the variance. I understand the density, but I think we're doing a disservice to ourselves, because we're going to have a meeting on November 9th, and now we have a list, and the list is an adjunct to the comprehensive plan. And what that looks like is we didn't do this properly. We didn't finish. And I understand sooner or later, and God forbid, there's just no way, if you've listened to to the town council work sessions or the town council meetings, sooner or later, the document has to be done. There's always going to be, oh, this or this. And I just think that we look unprofessional. We look like we were asleep at the wheel here. How did we approve it? It's gone to a public hearing it's gone in front of the public for 60 days, and now we're saying, but, and I think it reflects very poorly on the commission as a body. And I know as you know, townspeople, sooner or later, the document has to be final and we have to go with it. And I do believe that we've done our due diligence throughout these past months. We have discussed and debated, and I know the importance of having these, you know, these items documented so that we preserve the small town feel. And I think we've done that. And I just think there's always going to be more words, you know, emphasize, highlight, underscore. I think that we have to cut it.
So,
Thank you, Commissioner Brault. Is there any other final comment before we actually vote on this?
I guess my
Commissioner Greengold.
I'm sorry. I understand Kathleen's point about wanting to be done, but I also understand Lori's point that we're going to come back as individual commissioners then, and we're going to second guess ourselves as individual commissioners. We're going to look as silly doing that, I guess. So I understand Lori's point, and I don't want to negate things that we might want to add into it. Like she just did. She just added a couple administrative things that were important, I think. I guess my next question is, do we add to the list like my motion about the 35-foot height? Where does that come into this? Do I have to add that to the list, or where does that come into this comprehensive plan, or does it?
If we open this box, some would call it Pandora's box, then, I mean, you can add to it whenever you want. I mean, you can't, but the commission can. So you have to convince the commission to add whatever item you want onto the list. Let me point one other thing out. As we had last meeting, if you read the town code, any action by the commission requires a majority of the authorized number of commissioners to vote in favor of it. That will require 4 commissioners to vote in favor of this list for it to become effective. So, so to answer your question, Commissioner Greengold, the sky's the limit. You can add whatever you want if the list is approved. Well, the commission will add if it feels it's appropriate. So.
Okay, so I would like to add some things when Lori's completed hers. I would like to add a couple things to the list too then.
So
We haven't voted to have a list, have we?
don't have
I
a
seconded
list.
the motion to have the list, so.
All right.
But we haven't
So
voted.
can you tell us, Commissioner Greengold, about how many items you would add to the list?
I just have two things I wanted to add to the list, actually.
Okay, so we have approximately 5 from Commissioner Blackwelder and approximately 2 from Commissioner Greengold, but that leaves the option, since people will have a chance to think about it, we can probably come up with more. So, all right, so hearing no other discussion, all in favor of starting this list, say aye.
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 Commissioner Greengold, Commissioner Blackwelder vote aye. All opposed?
I
Nay, or aye?
All right, so if I understand it correctly, Commissioner Brault and Commissioner Rutke vote no.
That's correct.
Thank you. It's a tie vote. I vote no, just for the record. So the vote is 2 in favor, 3 opposed. It doesn't reach the 4 threshold, so it would fail in any case. So we can move on, I think.
One question, Chairman Brown?
Question, Commissioner Blackwelder.
Will we be addressing the 2 items that that were discussed that Chris agreed were non-substantive changes in our public hearing meeting? The documentation of the existing conditions and the addition of the icon and fib habitat on the land use map.
Chris agreed that those were not substantive changes, that they could be addressed, and we, in his introduction, as he said, to the public hearing, he'll mention those items. So,
Thank you. That would be fantastic.
okay, now moving on to item number 6. We're rolling. Zoning administrators propose zoning map and zoning ordinance changes necessary to implement the draft comprehensive plan. Mr. Jakubiec.
Okay, thank you. I thought if we just focus on the text amendments that have been assembled and submitted to quite some time ago. We got bogged down in this discussion of zoning map and map lines, and maybe we were going too far afield. So I thought we'd just bring it back to the actual text changes that you've all had and had a chance to read. And while I'm speaking, I'm going through them right now. Okay, so I have them teed up, and why don't we share the screen, and I will just bring up the, excuse me, the packet that's on the agenda for everybody, and we'll just track along that. There's a number of issues why I can't refer to that agenda packet the entire way, because I use different colors to indicate certain things. They faded in the reproduction of the document. So just give me a moment to share screen. Okay.
Chris, could I ask a question before we get off of the land use map? If I found something that is just missing or seemingly missing, should I just send you an email?
Yeah, sure, that'll be fine.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay. So the first, on the first page of the amendment list, and again, this is the revised amendment list. The first amendment list included the height amendments that the Planning Commission has approved, although the council didn't adopt them or didn't take them up for adoption, but the Planning Commission has acted on those height amendments. So this list is somewhat revised, and it just starts with the bonus density overlay district. And Amendment 1 would be to repeal Article 4, 290-15, the bonus overlay district in its entirety, and then renumber the remaining 2 sections accordingly. Are there any questions or comments on that? That's drawn specifically from the plan.
Chris, when you brief this, assuming it gets approved and sent to the town council, how would you characterize repealing the bonus density overlay district? How would you tell them it's going to change Chesapeake Beach?
Well, I'd say that the bonus overlay density is tied to both density and building height, and focuses primarily on residential development. The proposal is to reduce building height to 35 feet and to eliminate multifamily housing and all housing from the maritime districts and the other areas that were covered by this zone. So it's not needed anymore. It would reflect a level of density that's not contemplated or proposed in the comprehensive plan.
So is this primarily driven by the height restriction that the commission has proposed the town council adopt?
No, well, largely, and perhaps maybe it's right, maybe primarily, but it's also driven by, there's a density element of this. In the bonus density overlay district, density can increase to roughly 32 units per acre. But again, that assumes that you have a building height that would allow that type of density.
Okay, thank you.
And then Amendment 2 would simply then remove all the references to the bonus overlay district wherever they may appear in the zoning ordinance. So there are a number of locations where it references the density overlay district. Okay, the second one it begins new zoning districts and purpose statements. And Amendment 1 would address the fact that the proposed plan creates two districts out of the RV district. It creates an RV1 and an RV2. And if that comes to pass, there would have to be text that describes the purpose statements of these two districts. And, that distinguishes the two. So the RV1 Village District 1 language here in the bold font is proposed to be new. The RV1 district is intended to provide for pleasant and safe residential neighborhoods to allow primarily single-family detached houses on smaller lots to help ensure that new residential uses are compatible and harmonize well with existing single-family use. And then the RV2, I just made modest changes to the purpose statement for the RV, because again, the RV2 as proposed is really just what was previously residential village. So there you see the modest, almost clerical changes to that.
So, Chris, I feel like the RV1 district description, it doesn't seem to fully exclude houses other than single family houses, because it says on the smaller lots. So what does that mean if somebody combines lots? So I think that is has some leeway in the way that it's written that is unintended. And then the other part of that is the RV1 district doesn't make any mention to some of the things that the RV2 district makes mention. Like any of the commercial uses in the RV1 district. So I was under the impression that the RV1 district was going to be as it was as an RV district, only it wasn't going to allow multifamily housing, but it was just going to allow single family housing. But I think this description is a little bit different. So would you say that this description would still allow multifamily houses the way it's written?
No.
If I can interrupt, doesn't this go to the table where it I believe says just single family homes and RV.
Yeah.
Can
Yeah,
you take out the word primarily? It should say to allow single-family detached houses instead of primarily.
yeah, I mean, we could change the sort of those words. It's okay because, but there's other types of uses that are allowed in the zone. But it is the table of permitted uses that operationalize these kind of purpose statements.
Right. I just want to remind everybody that the district descriptions are in the comprehensive plan and are much harder to change. And the land use table is much easier to change and with less, less requirements. And so the district descriptions are very important, even though the land use table is what operationally implements the district descriptions.
Well, these district descriptions are in the zoning ordinance. They're not in the comprehensive plan. They're meant to be in section 290-9 of the zoning ordinance.
But aren't they also in the comprehensive plan?
I don't think so.
Maybe I'm wrong. The district descriptions, I feel like, I could be wrong. I'll look while you're going over the rest.
There is a kind of a categorization of what all the various land uses mean. And it's gotten complicated as the planning commission has used the same nomenclature for both the land use plan and the zoning district. But there's not a purpose statement per se. It's certainly not structured as a,
So you're saying that our code will not mirror exactly what's in the comprehensive plan, or will it?
No, not likely, and rarely ever does. Again, the comprehensive plan is a policy statement, and it's meant to be inclusive and allow the community as a whole to grow within the comprehensive plan and balance competing interests. The zoning ordinance really reflects how those interests are balanced based on the legislative, power of the town council. So they're often very different.
Well, but I think to Lori is suggesting that the zoning code is easier to change, the table is easier to change, and the comprehensive plan will be fixed for 10 years. The difference, though, is the zoning code is what requires action, and the comprehensive plan does not. When Chris, you say that it's not going to be identical to the comprehensive plan, I can see Lori's eyebrows raising, mine too. What we're proposing in zoning code changes should at least this time be completely consistent with the comprehensive plan that we worked on for 3 years. And I think you would agree with that.
I would agree that it should be consistent and it should implement what's in the plan, but I don't think it can be identical. And the word identical is the issue. It's not, there's no way we can make the two identical. I mean, you could make the two identical, but they do different things. And one's a policy document, one's an implementing document. It's the law, so it's going to read differently. It won't be identical.
So when you say identical, they're going to read differently, but the zoning code that we propose will implement the comprehensive plan that we've approved.
Yes. I mean, I really hope the Planning Commission follows through with zoning changes that implement the plan. I mean, that's what we're after is to tie the two together, to marry the two. And over time, both of these documents may change, but they should be reflective of each other. One should implement the other.
Well, from my perspective, we just went through the drafting of a comprehensive plan. Whatever zoning code we propose ought to match in spirit and implementation of the comprehensive plan that we've just proposed. And I believe that's what you believe, but
Yeah.
if you'd
and
say that, that would help.
Yeah, I agree with that completely, and that it certainly deserves restating. So we're all on board with that. We do want to make sure that this plan is, this zoning ordinance is implementing the plan. I mean, without a doubt, I agree with you 100%.
So
Right.
from my perspective, right now, what we're doing is we're looking at zoning code changes that implement the plan as we know it right now.
The draft plan, as we know,
And
that's right.
if there are deviations from that, then we need to correct those deviations. But we aren't inventing a new zoning code that's different from the comprehensive plan we've worked on.
Correct. Right.
So Chris, can I ask a question? I'm sorry.
Sure.
I don't want to confuse anybody, but so in the comprehensive plan on on page 83 in the housing chapter, table 6, is that currently what we have and we're planning on? And that's currently what we have. It's not what we are anticipating or what we're projecting, correct?
Okay, I'm just going to page 86 so we all
Yeah,
can see it.
thank you, thank you.
Um,
Yeah, there you go. That table number 6, table 6. If you go up to page 83, go back up. Go back up.
83. Okay.
83. I'm sorry, 83. Up.
Yeah. Okay.
There you go. There you go. Table 6. So that table is not what we're referring to then.
Yeah, this table, and the note says, this table shows existing zoning standards. Chapter 5 land use recommends changes to the permitted uses in the zoning districts. This is just what exists today. It's an existing condition situation.
Okay, so we don't have anywhere in here what we're proposing. There's no place in here that's indicating what we're proposing with the language that you just had when the amendments, the text amendments.
No, those are general statements of the purpose, you know, what you seek to achieve.
Okay,
By the thing. And then you would turn to the table of permitted uses. Obviously, if the plan says no multifamily in a maritime zone, the maritime district shouldn't have multifamily as a permitted use, as an example.
right. That's why I wanted to make sure it wasn't confusing. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Chris, thank you.
So anyway, the intent is, you know, just to endeavor to make sure that this text reflects the comprehensive plan. And to the extent it doesn't, like Cindy just mentioned, maybe it shouldn't say primarily. Maybe that sends the wrong signal. Maybe that suggests that something other than single family is allowed.
Yes, it does.
And then we should eliminate that. Okay.
Right.
So that's the type of discussion we're having tonight, to refine these. Now, again, all this, of course, depends on how you respond ultimately to the public comments that you have. So we have to keep that in mind, but we're just trying to keep progress moving. And we recognize that we may revisit these statements and these code changes, you know, after your deliberations on the comprehensive plan. But for now, so are there any other type of comments on these? Lori mentioned incorporating discussions about facilitating redevelopment and infill that is compatible in use, scale, and impact with residential use, because she didn't say that all of that, but it basically suggests that there are other non-residential uses that are also allowed in the RV1. And we want to make sure that they're reflected in this purpose statement, right? In which case,
That was my
yeah, in which case, I think that's good comment, and I'd like to make another attempt at rewording that paragraph E and bring it back to the commission.
Good.
Okay. And then Amendment 2 now is dealing with the purpose and intent of the other districts. So the first two changes would be to eliminate the commercial district purpose statement and the maritime district purpose statement, because both of those districts go away if a new zoning map is adopted as proposed. And in their place, there'd be a neighborhood commercial district, and that's the purpose statement. Now, everybody, I hope you remember where the neighborhood commercial district is, our districts are being proposed. They're intended to provide locations for small scale, low impact commercial uses that are designed and operated in a manner compatible in scale and impact with nearby residential neighborhoods. And Cindy, I was really thinking about all the emphasis you placed on this question when I wrote that, or this district, very early in the process and consistently throughout. So if any comments on that, now would be a good time.
If I could suggest, as you read through these, if you have suggested language changes for them, if you would send them to Chris so that he can factor that in, try and pull something together to improve it. So anyway, make your suggestions directly to Chris, please.
Oh, you don't want us to discuss it now?
You can discuss it now. I mean, that's
Oh,
fine, but if you if you read through it and you see something you think would better describe what is consistent with the comprehensive plan, send it to Chris, because he's going to rewrite some of these things and present them again. And I'd like to minimize the number of times we play ping pong.
The only question I would have is if you wanted to modify or change the word commercial to include professional or anything other than just quote unquote commercial. So in other words, you could have an accountants don't consider themselves commercial necessarily, but would you want to include or give yourself a little bit more leeway in what types of businesses would go into that neighborhood commercial district? I know down here at Roland's, we had, I think we had an accountant at one time. We had, so there are opportunities for other kinds of businesses to go in there other than, so Chris, is that significant or is that, nitpicking?
No, I think it's fine. I had meant the word commercial to be all encompassing of those uses. I mean, a lawyer's office is still commercial technically, but certainly adding the word professional or incorporating in there does kind of send a message that commercial means like professional office space would be very
right. A lot of professionals don't want to just think of themselves as commercial, so I just want to make sure that people understand that's where you would go in.
Well, the public doesn't want to think that commercial, quote unquote, is something other than professional, manufacturing, something like that. Commercial is a very broad statement, and I don't think most people would think in the town would think that professional would go under that. So I think it's a good thing to do.
Okay.
Did I get that at all close?
I mean, it would be a good thing to incorporate the word professional.
Yes.
Okay, got it. And then there's the town commercial district, which would be called TC just for short on the map. It's intended to provide for commercial and other non-residential uses that are compatible in scale and impact with nearby residential neighborhoods, and to protect and provide a safe and attractive environment for shopping, entertainment, and community gathering. So you can see there's a step up in terms of, basic feelings of intensity. There's people will gather there, and there we're talking about the entryway into town, the gateway that we've referred to, or commercial gateway, and also the properties, including those existing businesses on Maryland 261 between 260 and Gordon Stinnett. So that's the new town commercial district.
Right.
Now, Chris, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Are we not having any residential mixed use in that area? I thought we had talked about mixed use in that area. Am I wrong? Am I confused?
Yeah, I think that you agreed that mixed use in the form of residential above commercial would be allowed in the town commercial district.
Right, that's what I thought.
Yeah, and
But
so you're thinking we should incorporate that into the statement?
Well, you have other non-residential uses. I'm just wondering if you want to take out the non-residential uses, or would you want to put mixed use in there instead? I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, I actually think that's worthwhile. I mean, there are a variety of uses that would be permitted in that district. So it might be worthwhile keeping non-residential, but also incorporating, residential limited to or residential above the ground floor retail or ground floor office.
Okay, let's go.
you just broke up, Chris. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just saying, the statement would incorporate, it could incorporate a reference to residential limited to residences above ground floor commercial.
Right.
Then the next one, item I, says TC, but it should be TP, Town Plaza, or PC. I think we changed it to PC, Plaza Commercial, Plaza Commercial District. And that is really those areas that encompasses the shopping center and then the commercial uses, the office building / retail building just across on Harbor Road at the intersection of Harbor and Bayside Road. The Plaza District is intended to sustain the town's primary location for larger format, locally serving retail uses such as grocery stores and shopping center, where extensive parking can be readily accommodated. And then there was the Maritime Commercial, which is the remaining part of the Maritime District, previous Maritime District. And actually, there's a typo. It should say the Maritime Commercial District is intended to promote a variety of land uses that are water related and or benefit from location near the water, while at the same time encouraging the gradual reemergence of the natural systems found near the water and protection of commercial marine activities that have become the town's waterfront heritage. So this is largely drawn from the existing statement in the maritime zone. The existing maritime zone has a statement a lot like this, except that there's no reference here of residential.
Did you want to include? Sorry, did you want to include non-residential, no new residential use, or did you want to do anything about the residential use in there, Chris?
I would say it'd be consistent with the planning commission to reference that essentially that it's a maritime district is a non-residential zoning district that does all these things. Maybe that's one way of incorporating that in.
Right. Right.
Chris, I have one question about the text amendment is what is law enforceable. But for example, how do you resolve, like I'm looking at the table for planning and under maritime commercial, one of the permitted uses is churches, places of worship, et cetera, which seems to me personally totally inconsistent with what this says. So does the table need to be changed, or we just ignore it, or how do we do that?
Yeah. The purpose statements are important in that there are times when the zoning ordinance needs interpretation, and you ultimately have to go back to the original purpose to make that interpretation. conservation, right?
Yep.
And it'd be somewhat difficult to write a purpose statement that was so comprehensive that included all the uses that would be allowed by the table. Or
Right.
in the table. So I think the change that you would consider would be to the table. You would say, okay,
Correct.
well, you know, the current maritime district, religious uses are allowed. We're changing that, and the smaller remaining maritime district is going to be maritime commercial. It's a commercial district. There's no residential, and religious uses are not a good match no longer in that
Right,
particular
right.
district.
So we
because-
would just end up changing the table.
Yes.
Okay,
And
all right.
you know, we'll get to that. I took the first stab at that for discussion purposes. And that's later on in this list of changes.
Okay, thank you.
So Chris,
Yes.
I think that with this one, I probably will send you some language because I think in some ways it's missing the mark on the vision for this area. I think everybody envisioned it to be kind of a vibrant place where people had access to water. You know, there's going to be some public funding going into this area that's going to be able to be built. And I think that really beefing up this district description and working hand in hand between that flood plan and what residents envision for this very important waterfront area needs to be reflected in the district description. I don't think anybody, you know, really wants their tax money to go to anything less than, you know, a vibrant, beneficial location to all in the Maritime District. And I can imagine that a lot of public funding is going to be funneled there because it's in the floodplain zone. So I'm going to submit some language to you for that.
Yeah, I think that would be an improvement. And we could really reflect the promoting walkability that we discussed that's in the plan, sort of tying that emphasis here. Walkable, highly walkable, and vibrant. Okay, so that's, you know, this basically says that these purpose statements need to be changed, and that's the initial take on it. And if commissioners, please send ideas, as the chairman mentioned. And I've got some ideas already from this meeting, so we're ready to go with, you know, tweaking those as we move along. Okay, Amendment 3 would deal with the purpose statement for the Resource Conservation District to bring it into better conformance with the guidance of the 2021 update of the comp plan. So there's some new language. The Resource Conservation District is intended to promote and maintain wetlands, surface waters, steep slopes, forests, areas with elevated risk of flooding, and other environmentally sensitive areas, to provide locations for parkland, flood management, recreational activities, and access to the water and bay, and to avoid intense development and the placement of residential uses in areas not suitable for such development, and uses including areas subject to increased risk of flooding. It sort of reaches into the comp plan, brings a lot of those ideas and actual wording right out of it. What do you guys think?
Chris, you know, this is near and dear to my heart. I don't think it.
Spill your guts, girl.
There's no bird.
Right. So the wording that it does not prevent residential use because it says development and placement of residential uses in areas not suitable for such development and uses. And I just think that It just needs to straight up
Right.
not allow residential use. And my second comment was, I want that clause in there that says that we are going to preserve all existing open spaces, easements, and conservations currently platted. We get site plans for areas like that. I just want that in there as added protection. Those couple
Right.
little words that help us out so we don't have, difficult planning and zoning meetings. That I would like not to have difficult planning and zoning meetings. And I think we've been pretty clear about the resource conservation goals.
But do we want to take out any development and to avoid any development? I mean, what non-residential development would we want in those areas? A shopping center? I mean, what development would possibly work in any of those areas? I'm trying to figure that one
I
out.
would say just the recreational uses, like, the waterfront ones, do they want to rent kayaks?
Well, I mean, there
Obviously, we
isn't
want
much.
to pass through some of the resource.
Can you put down any permanent structures, and can we just have temporary structures then? Can we make it so that it's not permanent structures? Because all of these sensitive areas are going to be tending to impact any kind of a permanent structure. That's why if you wanted to just put in there temporary structure, so you could have a structure for a summertime kayak use or whatever, but I would think that any permanent structure would not be appropriate in any of this RCD. I don't know, Chris, am I wrong there? Is there any kind of a development that you can anticipate in that area?
Yeah, I think so. We have actually discussed this a little bit because we actually looked at those areas, those waterfront areas that are proposed for resource conservation. And on both sides of Fishing Creek, these resource conservation areas would encompass existing maritime uses. And I thought we understood that low impact use would be allowed to continue in those areas. That is water dependent and water impactful. I mean, like the storage of boats, those types of things, environmental research or recreational things. We went through that a bit of a list. I can't recall the whole discussion, but the intent was not to create a situation where by the changing the zoning ordinance would prevent any use, practically speaking, of the properties that are covered by the zoning district. That there has to be some allowable use of land for left in the property. So
Trails, you mean?
yeah,
Chris?
yes, sure.
Well, I mean, but use of the land is not development. So, I mean, could we avoid this by saying after the text says and access to the water and bay, and to avoid any development and the placement of residential uses in areas? Because a temporary structure such as, kayak rentals, that's not development, but it would then eliminate the possibility of any type of structural growth there, permanent.
So the focus is on development, like the impact of development and the sort of installation of impervious surfaces and buildings and the removal of trees to create room for access and installing water and sewer facilities and all those things. But using property in a much less intense way is satisfactory. Is that what you're getting at?
Well, I'm just trying to address the development. Certainly maintenance of the existing property right now, as far as like sewer lines or any type of, you know, reparation to water or sewer. But development, to me, development means, you know, new structures,
Of any kind.
so I would, to me, it seems if we just took away, instead of saying intense development or the placement of residential uses, if we just put avoid any development, then not suitable, avoid any development and uses including areas subject to increased risk of flooding, then that would hopefully eliminate the development in that district. But there's always infinitives, such as, the temporary, oh, let's have a kayak rental, oh, this temporary structure where we just house the kayaks, and then in the summer it's gone. But to me, eliminating the possibility for quote unquote development, buildings, structures, we would avoid that.
Okay. There are lots and properties that are not waterfront that are also within the resource conservation area that presumably would also be zoned resource conservation. And
Such as, could you give me an example of that?
Sure. There are lands that front on, there are lands between Maryland 260 and in Kellum's Field. And let me see if I can find a map for you. And that front onto Cox Road. Where would I find a map? Oh, it would be right here. Okay.
That map is also in your packet, so.
Oh, it is. Yes, it is. It's part of the packet. I can zoom in really close here. Okay, so if you look kind of carefully, let me expand this a bit. These are lots of record where the hand symbol is, as are these, and there's land along here. And there's this parcel, which is accessible from Moffat and Cox Road. And there's this parcel that is undeveloped, a wooded, steeply wooded location that is partially covered by wetlands, but up here, wooded. So the proposal that the Planning Commission has is that these areas would not be allowed to have any development. And that's you want that in the purpose statement. Generally, we want a zoning ordinance that allows some use of property. And if we incorporate that principle in your purpose statement about eliminate the possibility of development, we've got to also clarify what uses of land would be acceptable.
Understandable.
Okay.
How about low impact recreational use only? Because I know that house on Cox that I actually looked at, at the very bottom, they wanted to build a boat dock type of a thing. Because that of course is going to be part of that whole watershed area.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say low impact recreational use, so they could put in their pier, whatever, but I think, as Kathleen said, you don't want them to start putting in, sewage, and water thing. You want it to be minimal in its impact environmentally is what we want to do. So however you want to word that, Chris, I think the way it's worded now, it's just too open. It allows for too high of intensity, I think.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Yeah, and I thought we had been discussing all along no residential. So those plats that we were just referring to, I don't know what they could build, but I think that by the existing code and the easements and everything that's going on now, I don't know that they can build now anyways.
Well, these are not like plats in the sense that there's a subdivision that was platted. Obviously these were lots that were created at some point, but they're not designed with open space and forest conservation and the like. They simply exist as lots of record. Someone owns these properties, and some people may have expectations that one day they might be able to build a house on them. The land is environmentally sensitive, I can tell you that, because we just dealt with 2 proposed houses on Elm Street that were very complicated to go through the wetland delineation process and incorporate a wetland buffer, and ultimately they needed variances from the Board of Appeals. So this area is environmentally sensitive, but the lots exist. They're legal lots of record.
Chris,
So-
are all those lots vacant now?
Not all of them. There's 1 or 2.
Well, there are some houses on lots that would be in the resource conservation area. No.
That's right. There are some existing houses through here. Those existing houses they don't cover all the lots. There are lots that are vacant that are not in the same ownership as the houses.
So Chris, I mean, it's not for us to say just because I feel like we do this a lot, just because they have plats of record, it's not for us to kind of, go, oh, well, they have plats of record, so, we should let our resource conservation area be all built up. Resource conservation area is all over the place, and not everybody with a resource conservation area property can build.
Yeah, but I don't think we're saying that that's the choice is not between no development and allowing all the resource areas to be all built up. That is not at all what the plan suggests or what this purpose statement implies. What it suggests is that some areas of these properties may accommodate some level of housing. The current zoning ordinance does allow a single family house on a parcel that's zoned resource conservation, recognizing that that's a basic use of land that would continue to be allowed so as to avoid the possibility of unlawfully taking the property of people through regulation. And that is
But
standard
that's
practice.
not what we had talked about.
I know, it's okay. I'm just saying, you ought to be aware, and that's an issue. What we're talking about now is eliminating the possibility of development, which reads like it's not necessarily the possibility of all use. So we need to recast that statement.
Right. I think we've been pretty consistent on saying we're not going to allow residential development in the resource conservation areas, I think. Does
Right.
anybody think I'm wrong?
No, we didn't want any building. And if I may comment about those parcels or lots, quote unquote, the fact that somebody had anticipated what they might be able to do with it, to me is irrelevant, because we've told, how do I put this without being specific? We've told some other people that what they anticipated doing on certain lands they own, they won't be able to do. So that to me is a non-argument. The fact that somebody might have anticipated, getting to build their summer home or something. We have to do what's right for the town. That's non-residential in my mind in resource conservation, period.
But I think the question is what other use do you allow them to do besides residential? Do you allow them a big
Walk.
Accessory building, or what do you allow them on that property?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, I don't know the answer to that question, but when we get to the table of permitted uses, we'll see the whole kind of gamut of possible uses and kind of can make that determination. But what I hear you saying, two things: the possibility of development is to be avoided, not allowed here. And rather than say the placement of residential uses in areas not suitable for such development, it's to avoid development and residential use. That's essentially what you're saying. Or
Yes, and
residential.
then there's the
If
second,
someone's using the property now for residential, it's going to continue.
Oh,
Right.
okay, yeah.
and then the second part, Chris, is to uphold all existing easements that are already placed on the property.
Okay, that's fine. So eliminate possibility of development, eliminate residential use, new residential use, and upholding of existing protective land protective easements, whatever way we.
But didn't you say there are residential dwellings there?
There are residential dwellings on some.
Right, so
Area.
don't we have to say other than existing?
Sure. Yeah, I just said
Houses or
new,
whatever
I
it
said
is?
new, but yeah, we'll focus on other than existing.
Okay,
And they're just grandfathered, is that correct?
No, grandfathering, yeah, essentially, but in our world of planning, we call it essentially non-conforming. They have a legal right to continue that property. In other words,
Okay.
nothing in the zoning ordinance. There's no,
No, that-
which is a typical thing associated with grandfather.
So non-conforming is, in your world, the word for grandfather.
No, it's more encompassing than grandfather. But it's a word I would encourage you to think about using if you could, because grandfathering, non-conforming means that you can use the property. If the house burns down, you can build it back.
Okay.
There's a lot of rights embedded in that term set forth in town law. So it's just more encompassing of, there's also restrictions, on non-conforming uses.
So can I ask one question?
Yes.
If, okay, I have a property there and it burns down, God forbid. Well, I don't really have it, so it doesn't, God forbid. So my property burns down. I can reconstruct, but I have to now conform to whatever limitations are in effect. Like, let's say, there's no residential building there if we change that, but I could build a house back that's comparable to what was destroyed. Is that correct? I couldn't go higher now, right?
Well, you could, and I'll have to read the code section just to be certain, but you can definitely build it back to where it was if it burns down. But if you decide to leave the house and abandon it, and it remains vacant for over a year, then the next person that buys that property has to use it in conformance with the zoning ordinance, meaning they can't use it for a house anymore. So a non-conforming use has to be one that's continuous, active, and it was legal at the time that the zoning ordinance was changed.
Right, but there's nothing to stop unless we put something specific in that regard. If my house burnt down and rebuild it. But I now decide, hey, instead of that little beach bungalow I've had, I want now here's my opportunity, a full-blown house. You know, I want to go up 70 feet. I can do that? Or
Well,
do we need to put something that says that of equal, comparable, you know, height and whatever?
The zoning ordinance allows a non-conforming use to be expanded up to 50% of the current floor area. So you take half the floor area and you can add that again to your building. But you can't, after that, you've maxed out any potential expansion of a non-conforming use.
I think an example of that might be Mama Lucia's, which replaced Cheney's restaurant. And so when it didn't burn down, they just replaced it, and it's in a non-conforming use on that piece of property. Is that correct, Chris?
Yes, and they proposed an expansion, which was approved, but it was limited to no more than 50% of the square footage that existed at the time it was removed.
Well, I think as we talked before about non-conforming, because I'm in neighborhood commercial, being right on Bayside Road, and you can't get regular financing. It's a big deal to say something is non-conforming. You know, we had to, luckily there are banks in Calvert, you know, Community Bank of the Chesapeake and that kind of thing, who would loan money on it. But otherwise, you're stuck.
You're right. So that happens from time to time when zoning ordinances get changed and they become more restrictive. You create nonconformities.
Chris, the cliffs along B Street there above the boardwalk, are they considered resource conservation? Not at all, are they? They're just not buildable lot areas. In other words, if somebody wanted to build on one of those hillsides, could they do it?
No, not necessarily. If you look at the map I have up now, I'll zoom in so you can really get a
I mean,
closer look.
it's not listed as resource conservation, but should it be? I mean, should those hillsides? I mean, because I'm thinking there are some, you know, some areas where you could build a little accessory building.
Cindy, what I remember, we lived on B Street, and there was a company whose name just escapes me, but they picked up every little parcel of land that they could, and then a number of them ran above the riprap between the houses and the riprap. So we ended up buying our piece. You know, it was a separate piece of land, but there are people who chose not to do that, so it wouldn't even be their property.
Well, some people on B Street, like myself, I never had that option. You know,
the guy didn't come around to your house and say, "Give me $5,000, huh?"
No, he did not, because I would have acted on that. So, but I mean, you know, the current, right now they won't do anything on the hillside. I mean, the hill is so unstable. I mean, I can't even get them to paint a wall because the town doesn't want to enter the hillside because they're afraid. So, I can't imagine any structure, being acceptable on the hillside, because it can't support it, frankly.
If you go more north from your house, though, if you go more south, there are some properties that I think they could possibly build. But I was just curious. I mean, I'm not so overly concerned, but I'm just curious, Chris, about that.
Well, doesn't your map show that the cliff area is a resource conservation area?
Yeah.
Isn't that narrow green strip along the water resource conservation?
Right. The proposal is to make that resource conservation, and
right.
That's from 14th. Yeah.
14th down to Bayfront Park.
Right.
But to answer your question, there's also a whole nother layer of regulation here besides the zoning districts. There's the critical area buffer.
Yes.
You can't place impervious lot coverage, meaning houses, patios, closer to the water than the existing structure. So you can't encroach closer to the water. And if there's a structure on it, I mean, if there's no structure on the property, you're limited to basically the average distance of the properties adjoining it. So if each of them get are roughly 20 feet from, you know, the buffer, or 20 feet away from the water, say, this new house could be 20 feet. And it's not guaranteed, but that's the minimum or the maximum they could approach the water's edge. So basically there'll be no more development encroaching closer to the water anywhere in town because of our critical area regulations.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, it's 9:42. You want me to keep going through?
No, I think we're at a reasonable stopping point. If we, if you want to stop there, and we'll ask for any public comment.
Okay.
Anyone that wants to make a public comment at this point? I'm looking for hands in the air. I don't see any. Yes, someone speaking up?
No, I should have muted myself, sir.
Oh, okay. I was noticing that Mr. Blitz hung in there for the entire meeting, and I don't know if he had noticed, but the last page of our minutes that we approved tonight have his name and signature on it. But anyway, okay, there is no more public comment. We'll close that section. We'll move on to adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
And I will second it.
Okay.
Yes, I'm hungry.
And before we vote, discussion, just to point out, we voted to make a hearing at the conclusion of, or a meeting at the conclusion of the hearing on November 9th. We'll get that onto the schedule. If there's time, we'll have the meeting. If not, it'll be very short. I did want to ask Chris, have we heard anything from the state, the county, or North Beach concerning the comprehensive plan? I hadn't asked that before.
We heard appreciation from each of those when I sent the documents to them, and their desire to read it and provide comments, but we have not received comments yet.
Okay, thank you. And so, do we have any other discussion?
We didn't vote for adjournment, did we?
We haven't voted yet, no.
Oh, okay.
We're trying though.
I wanted to suggest that we continue and finish off this so that we can clear it up before our meeting next month, but that's my opinion. How much more of this do you have, Chris? Do you mind? How much longer is yours?
Well, this is actually a good breaking point because the next one is all the changes of uses, the table of permitted uses.
Oh,
Will be a very extensive discussion.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of things that need
And that's
tweaking,
the
shall we
last,
say.
that's the last one on this immediate set of changes.
do we need to complete that before the public hearing, or is that not relevant?
No, not at all. No,
Okay.
no. It's just, assuming these recommendations, assuming the plan basically stays the same in its basic makeup, then you have gotten ahead of the game by having this initial discussion about zoning changes. So, it's good work. And we'll have time to go back to those table of permitted uses.
Okay, no further discussion? All in favor of adjourning?
Aye, 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 aye.
Okay, 4 votes from Jan.
That was more than one eye.
I just have one.
I haven't
eye.
eaten yet, so I'm
Okay, then
highly
I will-
motivated.
I'll say aye.
Okay,
Okay.
then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night
Indeed.
now.
Good night. Good night, Chris. Good night, everybody.
Good night.